Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today it's a big one, the newest project from Lady Gaga, Mayhem. The longer Lady Gaga's in the public spotlight, the less I'm satisfied with any assessment of her career, which is both more and less strange than it should be. On the one hand, for as much as Lady Gaga's wanted to be this avant-garde pop provocateur, this many albums in, the closer comparison might be a die-hard theater nerd deeply indebted to the classics, who always goes for broke whether the idea is worth considering or not, but also such a consummate professional that she has a really high floor in her artistry. Indeed, her greatest strength can be marrying her quirkier sides to a rock-solid pop structure. But that might as well be a curse as much as it is a blessing, because when you get outside of mainstream pop at all, you start recognizing just how limited Gaga's experimentation in both sound and theme, and especially production, can be. Thank God she finally got away from blood pop, but I'm not sure just replacing him with Circuit, Watt, and Gestaffelstein would enable any sort of forward-thinking production choices. But in the run-up of Mayhem, I got the impression that wasn't really the focus. Gaga knows that she's back to old and rather familiar ground. Why not revel in it, see where she can push it? Even if the annoying pop nerds, would highlight how her music in this period wasn't really as challenging as it was marketed. And yes, the lead up to Chromatica was very similar, which I definitely overrated at the time. The production has aged terribly, but that project also had both a smaller scale and content and was a dance record dropping in spring 2020, perhaps the worst possible time. I can be charitable in accepting something of a do-over, and as such, well, it's not exactly a good sign when I say how much you like Mayhem is a matter of managing your expectations, but especially post-Chromatica it feels apt. For as much as Lady Gaga's albums could feel thematically recursive and sparking discourse and deconstruction around pop art, Mayhem is now firmly in that territory, directly copying notes left behind from both The Fame Monster and Born This Way, complete with all the echoes of their pop divas in their past. Any sense of transgressive danger is now firmly gone. And that should have been obvious when she tacked on Die With a Smile to the end of this album despite not remotely fitting. And look, as someone who grew up in that era, there's a sharp limit in my nostalgia because part of Gaga's appeal was even if the music wasn't that off the wall, she was trying to get a little darker and weirder. It did not always work, and if you were a little monster in that era, it felt like nobody's favorite weird Gaga song was the same. Mine was Teeth. I just don't hear those same risks being taken, especially lyrically. The challenging edginess is not there, especially when you can hear the aesthetic callbacks to previous eras, trying to echo the success of a Bloody Mary or Bad Romance, just now without the, well, teeth. But okay, let's be charitable and put all of that aside. Even though the album is desperately trying to work all of that nostalgia, Gaga's still a tremendous singer, and there is a floor of pop quality in the compositions, and that runs headlong into the production, where a lot of the attempts at gothic atmospherics in the opening stretch, with the pulsating bass synths, the boiling electric guitars, the vocal runs, the lockstep percussion, they would have a lot more impact if the mix didn't feel so aggressively oversaturated and especially compressed. You know, the parts of Born This Way that have aged the worst because any dynamics get crushed into grainy mush by the time the hook comes around. And even then, on the best songs of that album, that was never a proper issue. And while it can get suffocating on the industrial rock-leaning bangers, when this project then attempts something closer to groove on the disco funk adjacent songs, which has never been Gaga's strong suit because she's never been that loose in that lane, all the more evident with Killah that sounds like the most rote Prince or David Bowie homage that I've heard in a while. Zombieboy trying to balance some of that with a horror-themed tribute to a late friend and the flashy guitar warps that is also then evoking Holla Back Girl vibes. It somehow sticks the landing a little better, similar to the new wave rollic and 80s robotic vocals on Don't Call Tonight. Well, look, all of it starts sounding painfully cheap in the worst way, especially with generic dance filler like LoveDrug, where the primary melody outside side of the vocal line does not pop off, and you wind up getting ear fatigue for all the compression as the album starts dragging and dragging hard. It's one of the reasons I'm paradoxically more forgiving of the fizzy warbles that, at least in the verses, feel a bit more spare on How Bad Do You Want Me, even if I get kind of a Taylor Swift vibe in its lyrical patter. It is playing to the basics in terms of pop, but the execution's just considerably better, the dynamics work, which is why it's so frustrating when the attempts at this willowy 80s elegance on the beats doesn't work at all, so much as sounding like an abandoned pop trap song from the late 2010s, and a badly mixed one at that. And look, I'm not sure anyone goes to Lady Gaga for lyricism, but this album can effectively be split between the dance floor musings on fame and celebrity that she's done far better in the decades past, and a selection of love songs. She got engaged this year, said fiance actually contributed to the majority of songs on this album, and I wish I felt like these songs were more interesting, often feeling really short on unique details to flesh out their story. Another reason I like How Bad Do You Want Me is because it's a pushback on getting projected upon within a love song. One of those tracks where the blur between her talking to her partner and talking to her audience is in full effect, with Don't Call Tonight fitting into a similar toxic relationship cycle. There's some drama underscoring each song. They don't feel generic lyrically, there's more going on. And on the flip side, Blade of Grass was her attempt at a delicate personal power ballad, where I really wish the primary melody didn't feel so distractingly familiar, and even then, she's written way more compelling ballads than these. When you've written Shallow, the standard is pretty high. In short, maybe it's not fair to say that Mayhem doesn't live up to its title, but I don't think it ever could. And at this stage with Lady Gaga, I wouldn't be surprised if we never got material that bold again. It's not where she currently is as a pop star, and that's all the more frustrating the more she draws that comparison to the past. And yes, Gaga has always gestured at being more transgressive in her music than actually going there. She took a lot more chances around art and fashion, and I've always said she's at her best locking into a formula, but this album proves the stark limit of that approach and proves me wrong, especially when it keeps trying to tell me that this is more than it is. The pop culture meta commentary on Perfect Celebrity might have been potent 15 years ago, but any sense of danger is just not credible. It's too hollow now, especially with the slew of pop divas inspired by her delivering this same commentary and then doing it better, from Taylor Swift to Rebecca Black. That's not saying this is bad, or floor of quality is just way too high. Gaga's got a huge voice with a ton of driving charisma. I love when she gets more raw. I appreciate maximalism and some pop meta commentary. And in snippets, the oversaturated industrial guitars reflect a heavier chugging listen that has me wishing she'd just make the goddamn rock album already, preferably with someone who could actually produce a low end with actual muscle. I've been asking for that since You and I. But I'm also comfortable saying that Gaga is entering legacy act territory for a pop star. And while this is decent, and I'm not surprised by anything here, I don't know, I can't help but be a little bit disappointed. That's all. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. I fully know there's going to be a lot of backlash to this, but folks, do yourselves a favor. Go back to The Fame Monster, go back to Born This Way, hell, go back to Art Pop. Art Pop's a mess, but it was trying harder than this was. As much as Gaga hitting the same reset button on tones that she's done before is good, that was never the baseline of her appeal, and deep down, y'all know that. Hell, I really wanted to have the hot takes go up to scorching. I'd say that Kesha had way more experimentation throughout the past, well, 15 plus years of her career than Gaga has, and she's at least tried to be a little bit more transgressive in recent years. Well, anyway, putting aside all that, comments down there. Have fun. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if y'all want to get involved in getting projects on my schedule, or hell, just yelling at me on my Discord or supporting the channel, links to YouTube memberships and Patreon are right over there. Once again, don't feel obligated. It's tough times out there. I get it, I understand, but the option's available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.